Welcome to another episode of the Loose Cannons podcast. I'm your host, Sammer, and I'm joined by my boy, Stank, and the newly appointed Chicken Breast. And we also have a special guest from Barstool Sports, my boy, Stephen Cheah. What's up, man?
What's up, guys? How you guys doing?
What's up, man?
Chilling, and it's not chicken breast, but whatever.
I mean, everybody calls you Chicken Breast now, man. I don't know. I think we'll stick with that. Well, actually, are we talking to Schefter, or is this yeah? Never mind. It just looks a little bit like it could be. Maybe. Oh man, are you like roommates with the guy now or something?
Yeah, I'm actually operating out of his office this morning. He's taking a couple calls, so I booked this one.
It's pretty solid. So listen, I haven't really, obviously we haven't talked to you since the Tom Brady signing has happened.
Mm-hmm.
What was your reaction? Were you all about it when it was kind of coming into it all, or were you the Jameis guy? Like where did you stand on it?
Yeah, I was not a Jameis guy. I mean, I certainly rooted for Jameis. I was very excited when when we got the number one pick that year, and he was the guy. I wanted him over Mariota. But I mean, it's become clear over the last 5 seasons that he just wasn't a confetti quarterback. Like he wasn't, even if he managed to get us to the playoffs, you'd be hard pressed to believe that guy's going to beat 3 to 4 very good defenses and win a championship. So at that point, it's like, all right, let's kind of move on. I would be open to having him back if the price was reasonable and we struck out on other quarterbacks. But once I heard they weren't going to go the rookie route and it was the veteran, Tom Brady certainly was the clear-cut number one choice. Teddy Bridgewater, it sounded like, was the number 2 choice. I think either would have been an upgrade. I'm glad that we got the big fish in Tom Brady.
Now, a lot of people questioned it. I was one of those people that questioned it leading up to it of, could he fit the system? Could he make the throws? And you put out a couple different videos and you kind of broke down what Tom did in 2019 and how it would work with Bruce. Are you excited to see how it merges together?
Yeah, absolutely. In years past, like even in 2018, like he had a pretty high yards per attempt. It's just that this year they kind of pared it down, and that could have also been had to do with the personnel. I mean, they had Antonio Brown for 1 game or 2 games. Josh Gordon was not healthy, and then let go by the team. So they didn't really have any outside weapons. So for him to stretch the ball and push it down the field with the personnel that he had wasn't super realistic. And now he goes from, as far as skill position goes, from the outhouse to the penthouse in Tampa Bay, who is excellent skill position guys. With Perryman leaving, there's obviously a hole at the number 3 receiver, but we've got a very, very good stable of tight ends, even down to Tanner Hudson and Jordan Leggett, who are solid number 3 and number 4 receivers. Anthony Clear, more of a blocking fullback I look at. But yeah, I mean, our receivers are tremendous. I think he's going to have no problem. I don't think arm strength is going to be an issue with him at all. I mean, he's thrown balls last year in the air 50 plus yards. I mean, how often do you really need a guy to do more than that? So yeah, I think he's going to be excellent.
Hey, what's up, Steven? One of my concerns is play calling. I wasn't overly impressed with what we saw last year. And Brady's coming from a system where they seem to be masters at attacking the defense's weaknesses. How do you see this staff putting game plans together for Brady? Or do you think Brady has a big hand in figuring out how he wants to attack defenses?
Yeah, so actually with Bruce Arians, Peter King did a really good article a couple of years ago when Carson Palmer was in Arizona, and just like the week of preparation leading up to a game. And it's very much a collaborative effort. And Brady's, Jeff Darlington is Brady's guy, an inner circle guy, and was obviously a media reporter leaking a lot of the stuff, and cited that one of the 4 most important things in selecting a team was a collaborative coach. Now, I don't know if you guys remember that article or read that article, but Carson Palmer, leading up to the game, like it's fully a communicative effort between Bruce Arians' quarterback and Bruce Arians. So they go with what that quarterback is comfortable with. So he'll pick out the plays that he likes. Arians is going to give him a large selection, and the quarterback is going to pick out which plays that he likes, at least for the first 15, and they're going to keep going from there. And he's going to tell him what his favorite plays are and things like that. And I'm sure that was the case with Jameis this year too. So I think it's very much going to be a collaborative effort, but the way the personnel was built, especially when they had Gronk and Julian Edelman, like they were very much, and Daniel Jeremiah released kind of Bill Belichick's scouting principles and what he was looking for. They very much want to attack the inside of the field out. I think Tampa Bay is a little bit opposite that, especially under Arians, with their big receivers on the outside. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of move that around. Godwin, he played a lot in the slot last year, but I expect him to be in there a lot more. And even Mike Evans kind of moving around. O.J. Howard and Cam Brady I expect to be a little bit more involved in the passing game than they were last year. So I think that to a long-winded way of answering your question, it's going to be a very collaborative effort between the two.
So he's also used to – go ahead.
Steven, part of, I think, what Stank meant, because I too questioned some of the play calling last year, wasn't so much the type of offense we're running, but the nuances and the chess game that comes behind what to call next and how to set up the defense. Some people question, with this move, do you think Bruce Arians takes back over play calling? Is he more involved? Is it a Brady thing, more of a collaborative thing? Is it Brady calling the plays on the field and Leftwich just kind of, working off that? Or what do you expect here?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if BA, took a year off of play calling with Leftwich and then took it back once they got Brady. I mean, if you look, it would be a very Florida thing. Like if you look to the NBA when the Miami Heat, got going, they had who was a Stan Van Gundy, and then when they signed LeBron, Pat Riley was like, I think I'm going to coach this thing.
Right.
So it could be a situation like that, but I would be surprised. I mean, Bruce Arians knows he has a ticking clock, and I think I don't want to say more importantly than a Super Bowl, but he wants to set his guys up for success, and Byron Leftwich is certainly his guy. It's very interesting that Brady is older than Leftwich, but I think there's definitely a mutual respect there. And they both played the position, obviously, with Leftwich being a first-round pick and playing for a number of years, even with the Bucs. So I think that they're going to be able to communicate and talk the way that they want. I think Arians has taken much more of a CEO mentality where he's going to put the onus on a lot of his coaches to grow and develop, and hopefully, those guys can stick around for, this entire run.
Do you foresee Bruce Arians picking the quarterback that will basically lead this team post Tom Brady, considering that the general feeling is that he's setting up this team for the future as it relates to the head coach, being that the head coach is already on the staff? Do you think that they will basically look for the heir apparent, if you want to call him, as opposed to building for a win now type of situation in year one with Tom and then focusing on that in year two?
That's a good question. I mean, I think that they're very much in win now, so I don't, even if, Tua or Justin Herbert miraculously falls to 14, I feel like that's not going to be the pick. I feel like this is very much a win now, and they're going to address team needs probably more so than ever, just because they do realize they have a very short window or small window into getting this job done. I would be surprised if they didn't take a quarterback, but, I would expect that to be more of a day 3 pick. When you look at their roster, they re-signed Blaine Gabbert to a 1-year deal, very little guaranteed money. So, if that doesn't work out, it wouldn't be too much of a hit. Ryan Griffin, he was, I was very happy for him. He got, some playing time last year after 7 seasons of not. But, is he going to make the roster next year? We'll see. So they certainly could look to upgrade with like a, 5th, 6th round pick quarterback, but I would be surprised they addressed in the first 2 days of the draft.
So 2-part question here. Kind of settle an argument for me here. Being that they're in a win now mode, if there starts to be a run on tackles, there's a rumor out there that we might trade up. And secondly, there's been a lot of chatter around Clyde Edwards-Helaire and the Bucs, and him, them loving him for what we do, and he fits perfect, right? Would they trade up for a tackle if there's a run, and would they try and trade up on day 2 to try and secure Clyde Edwards-Helaire, or do you think they would be happy sticking at 45 and having one of those guys drop? Because there's a lot of talent with Cam Akers and Jonathan Taylor, et cetera. Or do you think they would want to just lock in a guy like Clyde Edwards and the tackle?
Yeah. One thing you've seen with Jason throughout the years is he's very adept at maneuvering the board. He hasn't traded up in the first round, but he has traded down a lot. Is this the year we start to, see him trade up? Certainly there is a glaring need at right tackle, and there are 4 tackles that stand out above the rest. My guess would be it depends on what the cost is. They've been linked to the Jags pick at number 9, and Jacksonville has openly said they would like to move down. So that's an area you could look at if there starts to be a run on tackles. But I think it really depends on, how their board is stacked with those top tackles. If they have, let's just say, for example, if they have Jedrick Wills as the number 1 tackle, as a lot of, mock draft prognosticators do. If he's gone and maybe there's the number 4 guy that is, at number 9, do they make that move? I would probably guess not, but it would really depend on how big of a gap there is between the 4th tackle in that first tier and the first tackle in that second tier, like an Austin Jackson or a Josh Jones. So I would be more surprised to see the Bucs pick at 14 than not. But that doesn't necessarily mean trading up. They could certainly trade back and acquire more assets. Just in previous rounds, when you look at unfortunately, Roberto Aguirre, Rally Marpet, or things like that. Like, these are guys that they're kind of maneuvering the board, whether it be up or down a few picks, to get their guy. So if they have a guy, if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is indeed their guy, I'd be surprised to see them sit at 45 and just have him fall. But if there are 3 or 4 running backs they have similar grades on, like a Cam Akers or I doubt DeAndre Swift will be there, but if he's there, or Jonathan Taylor, you could see them, just say, okay, well, we don't want to give up any assets. We'll take, the best one that's available at that spot. But I have more confidence than not that they're gonna maneuver the board. I think even with the virtual draft and making it a little bit more difficult to trade than it would normally be, I think that you're going to see the Bucs being pretty active in the trade market.
We invested a lot in Donovan Smith, and Arians has been mostly positive. Really, Arians and Light, everybody out of One Buck Place has been positive about Donovan Smith. Now, fans don't necessarily feel the same way. A lot of them don't. If you're going to draft a tackle at 14, that early, you're usually taking a left tackle. And I get it. You can draft a left tackle and play him on the right side, but that's a big investment for a right tackle. And we have other holes, clearly right tackle being the most glaring need on this team, but we have as many holes depth-wise on the defensive line. You think a guy like Brown or one of the tackles or Cheah, somebody like that, if they're available at 14, do you think that they may go with the best player available, regardless of whether or not one of those 4 tackles is on the board?
I think this is you never say you want to draft for need, but you also don't want to project out with your team just having a 2-year window. So if, Cheah is the best edge rusher they have, you look and we have JPP, Anthony Nelson had a decent year last year, albeit somewhat injured. And then you got the league's leading sacker. I mean, realistically, Cheah's not going to get a ton of time on the field. I mean, JPP can kick inside on 3rd downs, but, even so, edge rusher is certainly a premium position, but Cheah's, right around that mid to late first round grade with most mocks that you see. So I would be surprised if they didn't draft for need specifically with this draft, just because, we're not building for the future. We're looking at a 2-year window. When I talked about the quarterback, that was more of just like they're going to draft a backup quarterback because they don't have a solidified backup quarterback that is tied to the team for more than a year. So I think more so this year than any year, you're going to see this team drafting for need.
Do you have a draft, like a number 14 crush? Do you have a guy that you absolutely would love to see the Bucs land at 14 over anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I think the 2 tackles that I like the most are probably Anthony Thomas out of Georgia and Jedrick Wills out of Alabama. When you look at the other 2, Mekhi Becton out of Louisville, he's enormous. He probably has the highest ceiling maybe of any player in the draft just because of how good he can be due to his size. But he's still pretty raw, so you look at him in a 2-year vacuum, and maybe he's not going to be fully ready to be exactly where the team needs him to be. And then Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa, most prognosticators peg his best position at guard. Obviously we have Ali Marpet on one side, but Alex Kappa had a pretty good year last year. So do you risk maybe stunting his growth? Do you kick him out to tackle? What would you really do there? Wirfs' bugaboo he's been beaten by inside moves a lot. Like you look at the Penn State game against Yetur Gross-Matos. He had a pretty rough go there. So, giving up pressure to the inside from the right tackle is exactly what you don't want from someone who's protecting Tom Brady, who's not exactly Lamar Jackson. So I would like to see, either the Georgia tackle or the Alabama tackle fall. But, again, I would be more surprised if we picked at 14. I wouldn't be surprised if we trade down and acquired more assets so we can be a little bit more nimble, in that second round or even third round with either a tackle or a running back.
Now, settle a debate for us, a raging one. If all 4 tackles are gone,
Yep.
trading down isn't an option. My argument has been they're not going to draft for depth. I don't care how good Kinlaw is. And I think it was Luke Easterlin's draft. Shout out to him. I'm not necessarily saying I agree with this. Disclaimer. He had us taking a Henry Ruggs. My argument, or the devil's advocate argument that I want to make, was if all 4 tackles are gone and they're not building for depth, this is for now, for today, for this 2-year window, do they, if they have them high enough, take a DeAndre Swift or a Henry Ruggs instead of a Kinlaw or a Brown that would, at this point, like you said, be a depth piece?
Yeah. I think it depends on the player. So, like, when you're looking at Derek Brown, who he's not going to be there, but Kinlaw, potentially could. Look at who they're going to be replacing. So, Kinlaw, if he were to be drafted, would be replacing Will Golston, who's a nice rotational player. But Kinlaw could represent an upgrade. So I think, I would think that Golston is going to be the starter. But if they draft Kinlaw, that could certainly provide some competition and be an upgrade there. So, I would think that they would be drafting for any place they could use an upgrade. We could obviously, the difference between Scotty Miller and a Henry Ruggs you'd think is pretty great. But it would really depend on how high they have Kinlaw graded.
How dare you, the great Scott Miller, wide receiver 1. How could you talk about him like that on this podcast?
He's been on this crusade that Scotty Miller now is going to be wide receiver
instantly
1
receiver 1
because Brady's here now. He incubates and creates these little white receivers.
He does.
I mean, I really like Scotty Miller. He's really fast.
I do too.
Is he going to be healthy the whole year? Like,
Thank you. I've been saying once the ball hits that guy's hands, his hamstrings explode. He can't stay healthy. Why should I keep him?
Because he has Tom Brady to prepare him, to put him in the laboratory, to get his hamstrings right. It's going to happen.
I mean, with the amount of go routes we ran last year, we saw, even guys who are in, pretty good shape, like Mike Edwards and Chris Godwin, have hamstring issues. So, we'll hopefully that their sports science team has kind of figured that out. And with Brady, you'd figure they're going to run fewer go routes and a little bit not shorter stuff, but a little bit more intermediate stuff than they had with Jameis. So hopefully we have some fewer hamstring issues this season.
We have to draft or bring in a pass-catching running back. It has to happen. I mean,
Antonio Gibson.
It was a staple of New England's offense forever.
Antonio Gibson.
Back to Kevin Falk days.
Why not go get Devontae Freeman then?
Yeah, I love Devontae Freeman.
It's an option.
I think he's one of the. I think when healthy, if you could pick one running back for one game, I'm not going to pick Devontae Freeman. But he would be in like my top 10 for sure. If you can guarantee health for one game, and that's been a problem for him. He's had issues with concussions and other injuries. So you can't count on that. But, when he's everything. He can pass block. He's a really good pass blocker. He can catch the ball. Great runner. So I love Devontae Freeman. He's a guy that I hope we sign. But we'll see. Running back will certainly be addressed. They're not just going to go into the season with Rojo, Dare, and TJ Logan. Like, that's not going to happen.
Did you guys see that they did a virtual meeting with Chris Thompson? I'm not saying he's Devontae Freeman, right? But he's a pass catching back he's got some juice to him. And secondly, I mentioned Antonio Gibson. I had mentioned earlier in one of our discussions. What are your thoughts on them doubling up with that? Like, the Bucs have done that. They've been known to do that. What if they take a Clyde Edwards in the second round, and in the fifth round, they're staring at Antonio Gibson with great value? He can help you on special teams. He's a wide receiver, damn near. I mean, 60% of the time? Mm-hmm. You can line him up in the slot. Again, he affects different facets of the game. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that they could definitely do that. I mean, you've seen them do that even, predating Jason Light when they drafted Gerald McCoy and Brian Price in the first and second rounds. So, when you get past the fourth round, you're not exactly looking for, a starter, someone who's going to contribute immediately outside of special teams. So Antonio Gibson certainly brings a lot of value. You know, he did play, you know, full season starting at receiver. He played a full season starting at running back. So he is kind of a jack of all trades in that aspect. And that would certainly fit with what you'd think would be trying to do with Tom Brady. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did that at all.
Last question for you, Steve. Thanks for hanging out, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
The new uniforms came out, and I've asked every Bucs fan that I talk to regularly what they thought. What are your thoughts? Are you happy with what they did, or were you more of a creamsicle fan?
I am happy with what they did. I think it was maybe it was one of your mock-ups that I saw that had like the white.
No, don't blow up his head. Don't do that. Don't do that. You just messed up.
I forget. It was basically like the Ole Miss current uniforms with the whatever the stripe is like on the shoulder pad, and then just basically creamsicle or plain white or whatever. And I thought that looked pretty clean, but you know, they would have to abandon the pewter altogether. And I do like the pewter. I thought they hit a home run. I mean, there was nothing wrong with the old uniforms, and they just basically reverted to those, and then had the pewter one for the I guess for like night games and primetime games, which is a cool feature. If I'm being honest, I don't love the pewter uniforms, but I do think it is cool. Like I loved when the Ravens and the Eagles would have primetime games and they would show up in the all blacks. Like I think that is cool. So if we can do that or have some type of alternative like that, I think that's a plus. So I love them. I think they're great. I think I was a little bit worried when the initial quote unquote leaks came out and there was no orange in them, but it was good to see that there was some orange in them. We just, reverted back to the past.
For those of you listening, you cannot possibly call yourselves real Bucs fans if you don't follow this man on Twitter. This guy has ridiculous insight. He knows exactly what he's talking about. He probably doesn't agree with me on the creamsicles, but it's okay. Not everyone has to agree with me. But
they're going to come back next year when they can do the alternate helmets.
Exactly. Yeah, as he's rocking orange, by the way.
I know. That's why I asked, man. I had to ask. But really, really stoked you got to hang out with us. You want to give a shout out to anything in particular, or let people know how to follow you on Twitter and whatnot?
Yes. Yeah. Specifically for Bucs fans. So on Barstool, I co-host the Going Deep podcast with Willie Colon. This week we have a great episode. Tonight we're actually talking to Daniel Jeremiah, which will be out tomorrow. But this week we talked to two Bucs front office guys. We talked to John Spytek, who's the director of player personnel, and Mike Beal, who's the director of college scouting. They both gave some really good insight on what the draft process is like for the front office and kind of what that looks like from their aspect in terms of the off-season circuit. We talked to them down in Mobile. So yeah, go subscribe, Going Deep on anywhere you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. And then, follow me on Twitter. It's just at my name, Stephen Cheah, STEVENCHEAH. I've been breaking down the Bucs, all 22 since 2015. I do it every week, starting to put out more video formats, which is certainly helpful and a lot more in-depth. So a lot more of that to come this season. Every week those will be out.
No,
hey,
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, congrats on winning Nick Citro's bracket of 64. I'm sure you were relieved. You were relieved that Scott Smith knocked me out and I didn't get to face you. But yeah, because I was looking forward to catching a real ass whooping against you. But anyway, congrats on that.
Thank you. That was a very nice surprise. I never expected to win that. Just to be. I was actually left off the initial when he did the seedings. I was left off the initial thing, and luckily somebody noticed it and tagged me, and he put me in there. So it was very nice to not only be in it, but obviously beat some very, very worthy competitors. I mean, anyone I really beaten could have taken the whole thing. So a lot of great names on the list. So it was an honor just to be in it, let alone win it.
Yeah, it was messed up that they started that tournament when my team had just started getting the flu. So yeah, I feel like my squad was short short changed a little bit, but whatever.
I wasn't even on the list. So
yeah,
Stephen, you mentioned video though, and I DM'd you. When I DM'd you, I said I wanted to thank you, and I'm looking forward to more videos. I want to thank you for that Brady video because
thank you.
I was on Brady early, man, and I had to catch the fire and the heat, and I'm going to pull Sam right now and pat myself on the back. So thank you for that video. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Apparently, he couldn't make the throws.
No, listen, that video, dude, that's why I tell people to follow you on Twitter. That video alone changed my mind. And if you listen to this podcast before the Tom Brady signing happened, I was firmly against it just because I did not see how it would work. And I didn't watch enough of that Tom Brady I didn't watch him play enough to know if it would work or not.
Just
But
go back
it's
and go back
fine.
and listen to the podcast.
Chicken breast,
They
breast was
me.
right. Chicken breast was right.
Lynched.
Breast was right. But thanks again for hanging out, man. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll catch up later, bro.
Thanks for having me, guys. Go Bucs.
Thank you.